Hey everybody, Mario here, otherwise known as Y2M on the interwebs, and welcome to another edition of the Reboot review. So I gotta apologize for being really late with this one. There's just been some crazy stuff going on around me. The holidays didn't really help much either, things having kind of offset a little bit because of it. But don't worry, I still will try my best to make sure that my vlogs stay relatively close to being on time. Alright, so with that, let's get started. 4 comics from last week. Here's one of them, Green Lantern, New Guardians number 4. Alright, so this is basically one of those the plot thickens type of comics. After the melee free-for-all that just happened in the last issue, we sort of get some answers and then we get some new questions because, you know, we weren't confused enough in the last couple of issues. So apparently, and to the surprise of anyone who knows Lantern Corps, it was the Orange Lantern Larfreeze that was behind the whole steal the ring from every other Spectrum plot. And then we have the whole thing with the Guardians, who are being pretty dickish, and some might even say villainous. So you can understand the decision that Kyle Rayner makes near the end of the issue. Then the fact that he's the one to suggest, hey, let's all team up and stop other evil. We don't need those stinking Guardians. I gotta tell you, this was an average issue. I mean, I didn't really have any problem with it, but compared to the last couple of issues from New Guardians, I don't know, it just felt like it was a filler comic. It felt like there should have been more to it. I mean, obviously there's some things that were set up. I guess some things were concluded, but it didn't really feel like a conclusion. It really didn't feel like anything. It didn't really feel like a setup to anything new. It didn't really feel like a conclusion to anything old. It just was there. And that's pretty much what this issue was. Next up, Superman, number 4. Alright, so I have to admit, I've been trying to give Superman a chance for the last couple of issues. And I gotta tell you, I'm kind of starting to get to that breaking point with Superman. I mean, yeah, Supes had to deal with these alien elemental thingies. And the fights have been okay, but it just seemed like they had no rhyme or reason for them. But then along comes issue 4, which marks not only the return of these alien beings that Supes fought in issues past, actually starts setting up for an actual plot. Oh my gosh, no way. Although, I do have a couple of issues with some things. Number 1, so Jimmy Olsen. Isn't he supposed to be like Supes and I guess Clark's BFF? He didn't really act like that for either one. And it was kind of a letdown. And that Miko chick that he's paired up with, she's kind of coming off as a bit annoying. Perry White is just there. I mean, in the comics, he's just a filler character, which is kind of sad because isn't he like a mainstay for the Superman comics? And it just seems like he's serving no purpose in here, and it's kind of sad to see. I have no idea what's going to happen to Lois, because I don't know if you noticed, but spoiler alert, it seems that Lois might be catching on as to who Superman really is. I mean, the story itself is solid, but it just seems like it's one of those setting up for something far worse. And I know that the writer George Pérez was trying to give us a good cliffhanger ending that was supposed to, in theory, make us go, what? But in reality, when I actually saw the last page, I was like, huh? What? It was supposed to be a dramatic cliffhanger, but instead it just left me all kinds of confused. And that's pretty much what this story arc, even though it really hasn't been much of one, that's pretty much what this story arc has been. All kinds of confusing. I have no idea what's going to happen. I really don't. Usually I can give you a prediction or some sort of heading or whatever. I have no clue. My only hope is that Paris gets his act together and actually starts building an actual major story arc and actually gives Superman a villain worth tackling instead of these alien elemental stuff that just seems to be bugging the crap out of Superman for no reason. Next up is The Flash number 4. Alright, Let me get the bad part out of the way first. We don't see enough of the Flash. There's obviously a good reason for that if you've caught issue 3. But still, it just, it's called The Flash. The comic is called The Flash. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's just me, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more of the Flash in action. And considering how the pacing and the overall action of the previous 3 issues have been, it's kind of a letdown. You know what else was kind of a little bit of a letdown? The explanation as to how the Flash survived what happened in the last issue. Can anyone say cop-out? I'm sorry, it was kind of a bit of a cop-out. Yes, I know that it's entirely plausible considering Flash's assortment of powers, but it just was like, really? We're gonna do that whole escape at the last second with some little known technique that I've hardly ever used except for this one time that I've needed to use it because it was convenient for the plot power. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't take away from the overall issue or the overall story arc of the Flash, but it's like, kind of made me groan a little bit. In this issue we get a pretty detailed origin behind the villain's mob rule, and it's actually kind of sad, and you can kind of start feeling bad for these guys and for the original. You'll understand what I mean when you read the issue. And really, you start to wonder what's going to happen next. How will this all conclude? Obviously, you're getting an idea that it will conclude in issue 5, especially since we know that the Flash is okay. So apart from those 2 little roadblocks, this issue is pretty solid, pretty amazing. The artwork is once again stellar and great, but of course I'm a little disappointed because the Flash wasn't in this one much, and the artwork I think shines more when the Flash is actually out there and in action. Still, I recommend this. Pick it up. And finally, my pick for this edition of the Reboot Review, Aquaman number 4. Let me get this out of the way once and for all for any few doubters out there about Aquaman. Aquaman is cool now. Face it, deal with it, accept it. This issue is no different. This issue is a conclusion to the story arc dealing with the trench. So pretty much after 3 issues of not being in the water, Aquaman and Mera are like, you know what, we should probably go in the water and deal with the trench personally. Which they do. Some people have been complaining that the story arc was wrapped up too quickly. I thought 4 issues was a pretty good size for a story arc that we weren't expecting, considering we weren't expecting much from Aquaman to begin with. Geoff Johns has single-handedly redefined the character as we know it. And from this point on, when we talk about Aquaman, we're going to be talking about Geoff Johns' Aquaman. Again, I love it when really talented writers can take a character who's useless or fading into obscurity and just redefine him and make him relevant and amazing and simply cool again. Ivan Reis's artwork is just simply stellar. The action when Aquaman and Mera fight the trench is amazing. The underwater action is done so well, especially considering that underwater action usually isn't done very well, even in film and television. So to see it done smoothly and awesomely in comic form is really something to behold. I thought that the story arc with the trench was wrapped up pretty nicely, and it pretty much gives us a glimpse as to what the next story arc will be, which should surprise no one really, but I can't wait to see because I've been asking this very question as well. So I can't wait to pick up issue 5. Basically, Aquaman is one of my favorite comic series in DC going on right now. I love it very much, and I gotta tell you, coming from a former Aquaman hater, that's really saying a lot. Geoff Johns, congratulations to you, sir. You have once again redefined kind of a lame hero and made him awesome. Good for you, and I will definitely be picking up the next issue, and you should too. You should pick up all the issues and stay up to date with Aquaman. Aquaman is one of the shining gems in DC's New 52. That about does it for now. So this is pretty much going to be one of the last few installments where I call this vlog the Reboot Review. I just feel like we're in too deep in DC's 52 to call it a Reboot Review. And thanks to your suggestions, all one of you, I will start using the new title probably in the next 2 or 3 installments. But in case you haven't heard, I was actually asking for suggestions on what the new name for my DC review vlog should be. If you would like to add any input, feel free to do so, but I think I know what I'm going to call it. But hey, if you think you can change my mind, have at it. Alright guys, I'm going to try to stay up to date with my vlogs. It's going to be a little bit of a rough time for me lately. Nothing too bad, it's just stuff that I need to adjust to. But I'll get on it, and I will get on reviewing the next batch of comics coming my way. Keep reading, live nerdcore, light to 'em out.